Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Podcast. Today is Wednesday, September 11th, 2019. Today we're going to recap yesterday's baseball games, look ahead to today's games, go over this morning's FIBA games, look ahead to tomorrow's, a big injury in Major League Baseball, another Antonio Brown story, which we'll get to eventually once I go over my NFL power rankings and when I get to the Patriots. So we'll save Antonio Brown for when we talk about the Patriots. Bowl projections for college football, WNBA playoff picks for round one, which is tonight, and my best bet of the day. Okay, we're actually going to start with the FIBA World Cup. You know why? Because there was a monster upset this morning. France upset the United States this morning by a score of 89-79, and France will move on to play Argentina on Friday. So that is a monumental upset. Knicks point guard Frank Ntilikina was a big part of France winning that game. You have some other NBA players on France like Nick Batum and a few others that are pretty notable. Rudy Gobert, who's obviously the talented big man on the Utah Jazz. And the bottom line for United States and why they fell short is because their stars, our biggest stars, didn't play. Like James Harden, Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard, all not playing, cost this team a World Cup championship. No doubt about it. So whoever wins this World Cup might have a little asterisk by it in my standards because the U.S. did not have their best talent. And if the U.S. had their best talent, they probably win the FIBA World Cup this year. But bottom line, U.S. accomplished a invite to the Olympics next year. So that's what the main goal, other than obviously winning the whole thing, was. But the one of the main goals was obviously getting to the Olympics. So at least they'll be in the Olympics. That would have been embarrassing had they not made it to the actual Olympics. So France will take on Argentina. And the other final from today, Australia defeat Czech Republic by a score of 82-70 as Australia moves on and continues their run to the throughout the tournament. So they'll take on Spain, who beat Poland yesterday. And then the classification games, you have U.S. against Serbia. And Serbia was actually favored over Argentina to go to the semis. But no, they got knocked out. So those two will face each other tomorrow. And then Poland and Czech Republic will face off tomorrow as well. I think United States and Czech Republic will win. Or I'm sorry, Spain. No, wait. Yeah, I think I'm going to go Czech Republic. I misread that. I'm sorry. All right, now we'll go over baseball, look ahead to today, and look back on last night. There were a few surprise results, some ones that were predictable. The Tigers defeat the Yankees 12-11 on a walk-off single by Jordy Mercer. This game was probably a game that the Yankees could end up circling and say, if we had won that game, we would have home field advantage. That's if they tied the Astros or finished one back of them. This is a game that they're going to be circling on the calendar if they don't finish with the best record in baseball. Gleyber Torres made a brutal error which led to a bunch of runs, and that's pretty much why the Tigers had a chance to win this ball game. If not for that, the Yankees probably win this game. Probably by a score of like 11-7, 11-5 or something like that. So Detroit's 43-100. Yankees 95-51. Joe Jimenez the win. Chance Adams the loss. Edwin Jackson, flat out the worst pitcher in baseball. 2 innings, 6 earned runs, a walk, and 2 strikeouts. You're at 9.76. Nestor Cortez Jr. got the start. He's pretty much the opener, but he was not very good. 2 1/3 innings, 6 hits, 2 runs, a walk, 2 strikeouts. You're at 5.23. Phillies over the Braves 6-5. The Phillies with the big win. They're 75-69. Atlanta 90-56. Getting the win for the Phillies out of the bullpen was Blake Parker. Max Fried gets the loss. Hector Neris the save. Starting for the Phillies in this game was Jason Vargas, 3 innings, 6 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, and 3 strikeouts. ERA 4.31. Fried, 5 innings, 7 hits, 5 runs, and walk, 5 strikeouts. ERA 4.02. Dodgers over to Orioles 7-3. Dodgers 94-52. Baltimore 46-98. Walker Buehler to win. Ty Block the loss. Buehler at the quality start, 7 innings, 4 hits, no runs, no walks, 11 strikeouts. ERA 3.14. Block, 2 in the 3rd innings, 9 hits, 6 runs, a walk, 3 strikeouts, ERA, and ugly, 11.32. Blue Jays over the Red Sox, 4-3. Toronto, 56-89. Boston, 79-69. Or 76-69, my bad. Getting the win for Toronto is Justin Schaefer. Getting the loss for Boston was Josh Taylor, and Ken Giles got the save. TJ Zook started in this game for the Jays, 4 in a 3rd inning, 6 hits, 3 runs, 2 walks, no strikeout, ERA of 5.4. Getting the start for Boston was Nathan Eovaldi, 4 in a 3rd inning, 6 hits, 3 runs, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts, ERA 5.81. Mets over the Diamondbacks 3-2, a big win for the Mets. They are 74-70, Arizona 75-70. Zach Wheeler to win, Zach Gallen the loss, Justin Wilson the save. Starting for the Mets in this game was Zach Wheeler, 7 innings, 7 hits, and a run, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts, ERA 4.21. He was pretty good. Zach Gallen, 6 innings, 5 hits, 3 runs, 2 walks, 9 strikeouts, ERA 2.66, so he pitched pretty well in this game as well. Brewers over the Marlins 4-3. The Brewers 76-68. Miami 51-93. Junior Guerrero the win. Adam Conley the loss. Drew Pomeranz gets the save. Chase Anderson 4 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, ERA 4.57. Alicia Hernandez 5 innings, 4 hits, 3 runs, no walks, 5 strikeouts, ERA 5.24. Twins over the Nationals 5-0. The Twins with a big win, 89-55. Washington 79-64. Jose Barrios to win. Anibal Sanchez the loss. Barrios 7 innings, 2 hits, no runs, a walk, 4 strikeouts, ERA 3.63. He was great. And Anibal Sanchez 7 innings, 4 hits, 2 runs, a walk, 5 strikeouts, ERA 4.04. Rays over the Rangers 5-3 in 11 innings. Tampa is 87-59. Texas 72-74. Emilio Pagan the win. Getting charged with the loss for Texas was Emmanuel Clace. And getting the save for the Rays was Peter Fairbanks. Starting in this game for Tampa was Ryan Yarbrough. 7 innings, 3 hits, 3 runs, a walk, 7 strikeouts, ERA 3.51. Lance Lynn 7 innings, 4 hits, and a run, 3 walks, 7 strikeouts, ERA 3.72. White Sox over the Royals 7-3. The White Sox 64-80. KC 59-92. Ivan Nova the win. Jacob Junis the loss. Ivan Nova 5 2/3 innings, 6 hits, 3 runs, no walks, 5 strikeouts, ERA 4.69. Junis 5 innings, 6 hits, 3 walks, 5 runs, 7 strikeouts, ERA 5.06. Astros over the Athletics 21-7. Yikes. Oakland 85-60. Houston 95-51. Tanner Roark the win. Wade Miley the loss. Daniel Megden the save. Definitely the worst loss of the season for the Houston Astros. They legit gave up runs in every inning of this game. Almost, at least. Roark 5 2/3 innings, 8 hits, 5 runs, a walk, 3 strikeouts, ERA 3.4. Wade Miley, 1 out recorded. 7 hits, 7 runs, a walk, and no strikeouts, ERA 3.74. His numbers have been absolutely deflated by this start and then that ugly start against the Mariners. So the Astros really must be scratching their heads a little bit and saying that this guy is really not performing at the right time. He's really sucking at a time that they need him to step up and be a solid number 4 starter. And this is just a very alarming sign if you're a fan of the Houston Astros. Rockies over the Cardinals 2-1. The Rockies are 61-84. St. Louis 81-63. Chichi Gonzalez the win. Michael Wacha the loss. And getting the save for the Rockies was Jero Diaz. Gonzalez 6 innings, 4 hits and a run, no walks, 4 strikeouts, ERA 6.56. Wacha 4 innings, 5 hits, 2 runs, a walk, 3 strikeouts, ERA 4.97. Giants over the Pirates, 5-4. San Francisco bounces back, 70-75 on the year. Pittsburgh 63-82. Johnny Cueto to win, Mitch Keller to loss, and getting the save for San Francisco was Sean Anderson. Cueto, 5 innings, a hit, no runs, a walk, 4 strikeouts, ERA of 0. Mitch Keller, 5 innings, 9 hits, 5 runs, no walks, 7 strikeouts, ERA 8.29. Yikes, he's been very disappointing for the Pirates. Indians over the Angels, 8-0. The Indians are 85-61. LA 67-79. Zach Plesac the win. Jose Suarez the loss. Plesac the complete game, 4 hits, shutout, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts, ERA 3.64. Suarez 3 innings, 4 hits, 6 runs, 2 walks, and a strikeout, ERA 6.94. Padres over the Cubs, 9-8 in 10 innings on a walk-off walk by Miguel Margot. Padres are 67-77. The Cubs 77-67, getting the win for the the Padres. Michael Baez and Steve Chizik the loss for the Cubs. Starting in this game for the Pods was Bolanos, 5 innings, 5 hits, 5 runs, 4 walks, 5 strikeouts, here 5.73. And then for the Cubs was Jose Quintana, 3 innings, 7 hits, 4 runs, no walks, and a strikeout, ERA 4.15. Mariners over the Reds 4-3. Seattle 59-86. Cincinnati 67-78. Getting the win for Seattle was Dan Altavilla. Getting charged with the loss was Amir Garrett. And getting the save for Seattle was Anthony Bass. Justice Sheffield started his first quality start. 6 innings, 7 hits, and a run, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts, here at 4.43. Trevor Bauer with a good outing for the first time in a while for the Reds. 6 in the third inning, 3 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts. ERA 4.55. Looking ahead to tonight's games at 6:40, you have the Yankees at the Tigers. CC Sabathia against Matthew Boyd. 7 o'clock, ESPN, Braves, Phillies. Dallas Keuchel and Zach Eflin. The Braves are very close to wrapping up the National League East title. Dallas Keuchel is somebody that I thought the Phillies should have signed in the offseason. I predicted that he was going to end up as a member of the Philadelphia Phillies, but instead ends up signing with the Braves in the middle of the season. He's been solid. Zach Eflin, meanwhile, is just mediocre. So I think that the Braves are going to shrink their magic number and get this important win on the road against the Phillies team that is still hanging around a bit, but ultimately will fall short of their expectations. Dodgers, Orioles. Ross Stripling and John Means. Dodgers obviously clinched the division last night, and now they're just playing for home field advantage with the Braves only 4 games back of the loss column from them. Red Sox, Blue Jays. You have Wilmer Font for Toronto as the opener, and Bobby Pointer, I guess, as an opener for Boston. Diamondbacks, Mets. Steven Matz and Robbie Ray. Brewers, Marlins. Zach Davies and Pablo Lopez. Nationals, Twins at 7:40. Steven Strasburg and Martin Perez. Rays, Rangers at 8 o'clock. Ariel Gerardo and Andrew Kitteridge. Kitteridge as the opener for Tampa. Indians, Angels. Adam Pluko and Dylan Peters. Royals, White Sox. George Sparkman and Reynaldo Lopez. Athletics, Astros. Brett Anderson and getting the start for Houston, Jose Urquidy. I wonder if he's just an opener for them. Cardinals, Rockies at 8:40. Dakota Hudson and Antonio Senzatela. Pirates, Giants at 9:45. You have Logan Webb against Dario Agrazal. At 10 o'clock, you have the Cubs at the Padres on ESPN. Cole Hamels and Chris Paddock. That's a nice pitching matchup. I'm going to take the Cubs here on the road. Chris Paddock is somebody that really has fallen apart of late. Despite his fine rookie season, he's not the same guy as he was earlier in the year. He hasn't been the same since he's come back up. he's somebody that's going to be a good pitcher, but really that demotion in the middle of the year that was unnecessary of the Padres really was stupid, and that was coincided with them falling out of the race in the National League wildcard race, because they were kind of hanging around in the summertime, were rumored to be a buyer at the deadline. Well, they ended up involved in that big trade with the Indians and the Reds with Bauer and Yasiel Puig and stuff, but that team really fell apart after Paddock got sent down for no reason, literally, other than to limit his innings. But that's something that the Padres shouldn't have done, in my opinion, because Paddock really hasn't been the same, and he's been kind of mediocre. So I'm going to take the experienced guy in Cole Hamels and bank on the Cubs to rebound from that bad loss last night that shrunk their wild card lead. So give me the Cubs tonight on the road. And then the Reds at the Mariners, Sonny Gray and Marco Gonzalez. Okay, now we're going to talk about a big injury that happened last night in baseball. Christian Yelich, your reigning National League MVP, broke his kneecap in last night's game against the Marlins. That's just a devastating loss for the Brewers. Their season is now over, and that guy single-handedly pretty much carried them to this point with some help from the likes of Keston Hiura and Mike Moustakas. Their pitching stinks. Josh Hader's been on and off throughout the year, and this was the death blow of their season. And now the National League wildcard race is obviously the Nationals and the Cubs at the top. And then behind them you have Monkeys 1 back. They're done. I'm crossing them off. Phillies 2 back. I think that Yelich injury opens up the door for them. Arizona, who's 2.5 back, and the New York Mets, who are 3 back. I think those 3 teams with the Yelich injury have opened the door a little bit. And the Cubs are 2.5 back of the Nationals for the top wild card spot. And the National League Central, the Brewers are 5 back of the Cardinals. Cubs are 4 back. I think the Cardinals will ultimately win that division. The Cubs have just underachieved this year, and then the Brewers just lost Yelich, so I'm crossing off the Brewers. But the Brewers are not a bad team by any of the stretch of the imagination, but they failed to address their pitching. That's ultimately their undoing. And their bullpen regressed from last year. And obviously their best player by far and away, who was probably on his way to winning his 2nd consecutive MVP, just broke his kneecap. So I think Christian Yelich, this award will cost him the MVP, and obviously this makes Cody Bellinger the front runner for this award. Although you have guys that really should be in the conversation, but ultimately won't get it, like Ronald Acuna and Anthony Rendon and even Freddie Freeman of the Braves. Those 3 guys I think will be in the conversation in the top 10. But ultimately, this is Bellinger's award now to lose with Yelich breaking his kneecap. I thought Yelich probably would have won this award if he remained healthy. And I said back in April, May, it was a 2-horse race between Bellinger and Yelich, and whoever avoids the injury will win this award. And Bellinger has avoided the injury. Yes, he's gone into somewhat of a tailspin in the second half of the season, but to me, he's healthy, and he has a lot of home runs. He's the best player on the Dodgers that is a position player, and I think that he should be the favorite to win the National League MVP now with Christian Yelich with the broken kneecap. And in terms of Yelich's timetable back, I'm sure he'll be back by the start of next year. The Brewers, I don't know if their team's going to look any different or it's going to be a lot of the same. I would like to see them improve their pitching staff in the rotation in particular. They have Grandal behind the plate. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. I wonder if they bring him back. He's been pretty versatile. He's played some first base for them. Ryan Braun's still around. I don't know if his contract's up or not. Mike Moustakas is still there. I think he was only on a 1-year deal too. And then you have Keston Hiura at second base. That guy's a future star in the making. Lorenzo Cain's still there. You also have Hader in the bullpen. You just robbed from the Astros for Carlos Gomez. That's going to go down as one of the better trades that the Brewers have made over the last couple years, along with the Yelich trade, obviously. They pretty much robbed the Marlins, although the Marlins got some pieces back, but the main piece has been a huge bust in Lewis Brinson. So I really hope Christian Yelich gets well soon, and I think he's a top 5 player in this game when he's healthy. So it's just unfortunate that Yelich had to get hurt in the middle of the pennant race. Okay, now I'm going to do my NFL power rankings. I'm going to go from 32 to 1, as I will do each and every Wednesday on this podcast until the end of the regular season. And a new feature I'm going to have on the weekly power rankings is that I'm going to have a cross-off team, where I have to cross off a team for the season. And there's obviously one candidate for that and one obvious answer, and that's the number 32 team on my list, the Miami Dolphins. Everyone knew before the season that they were going to be tanking for Tua Tagovailoa. Everyone and their brother. So that lived up to the reputation on Sunday, and now I think there's a chance that this team could go 0-16. Number 31, I have the New York Football Giants. They were the worst NFC team I saw over the weekend in terms of how they looked on defense, especially. It's funny, they actually got off to a good start in that game, and then there was a bad call on Eli Manning, the intentional grounding. That was a terrible call, and I think the Giants got distracted after that, and they just stopped trying and gave up, and they did not give the ball to Saquon Barkley enough. But let's face it, no matter how many touches Saquon Barkley gets, it doesn't matter. Their defense isn't stopping any good offense in the league. They might stop a bad offense. I mean, they could get, in theory, a few stops against Josh Allen and the Bills. If Josh Allen looks like the Josh Allen we saw through the first 2.5 quarters in that Jets game, the Giants might actually win that football game on Sunday. But we'll talk about the picks for Friday when Friday comes. So the Giants are 31 on my power rankings. Number 30 is the Arizona Cardinals. This is the team I thought was the worst in the NFC before the year. If it wasn't for Kyler Murray's brilliant comeback, which led to the tie, then they'd be 31 on this list. So that alone is what made me put them at 30 on this list. They are going to face the Baltimore Ravens this week in Baltimore, and going up there is asking a lot for the Cardinals to show all of us something. 29, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're a team that lost at home to the 49ers. Jameis Winston looked horrible. Now they play tomorrow night against the Panthers in Charlotte. So we'll see how they look there. Number 28 is the Cincinnati Bengals, a team that probably should have won their game outright in Seattle against an overrated Seahawks team. Andy Dalton played very well considering the atmosphere. He didn't have his best receiver in A.J. Green, and now people are expecting them to win at home against the 49ers on Sunday afternoon. 27 is the Washington Redskins. They looked very competent in their game against the Eagles in Philadelphia, but to me that was more about the Eagles' defense and how overrated it is rather than them looking well. I think Case Keenum flat out sucks, and their offense is going to regress against a much better Dallas Cowboys defense. So I just don't think that the Washington Redskins are going to repeat their fine offensive performance from last week against the Cowboys on Sunday. 26 is the Detroit Lions. They're a team that had a big lead, should have won their game, and ultimately ended up in a tie. TJ Hawkinson was the bright spot for them. He played very well in his NFL debut, and the Lions on Sunday will be at home against the Los Angeles Chargers. 25 is the Oakland Raiders. They surprised everybody and beat the Denver Broncos on Monday Night Football. Next up for them, they host the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. And we'll get to the Chiefs and the loss of Tyreek Hill in a little bit. But got to give the Raiders some credit. They put all the turmoil behind them, and they really put on a good performance in Week 1. Their pass rush did a nice job against Denver's offensive line. And their offensive line held up very well against a very good Broncos pass rush. So the Raiders have some very positive things to take away, and that might be the team that we all think is terrible that surprises us this year. There are a lot of candidates for this. I had the Raiders, Redskins, Giants, Bucks, and there's a couple others, the Cardinals, the Lions. There's a few other bad teams that were candidates to surprise. Pretty much every bad team except the Dolphins were a candidate to surprise. And I certainly wasn't expecting it to be the Raiders. I thought if any of the bad teams were going to possibly surprise, it would be the Redskins if they decided to go to Dwayne Haskins. But who knows, because Case Keenum actually looked decent last week. Number 24 is the San Francisco 49ers. They won a game in Tampa Bay against the Buccaneers, courtesy of 2 Jameis Winston pick sixes. Jimmy Garoppolo didn't look good either. I think, like I said, Jimmy is obviously coming off the ACL, so it's going to take him a while to get right. And now they're actually an underdog in Cincinnati against the Bengals on Sunday. 23 is the New York Jets. They lost a heartbreaking game to the Buffalo Bills. They had a 16-0 lead and they choked. More of that was because of their defense and the injury to C.J. Mosley. That really hurt them defensively because their defense was awesome in that game until Mosley got hurt. And I feel like the coaching staff is taking too much of the blame of this game. Meanwhile, their offense was atrocious. They actually had a pick six by Mosley in the first quarter in that game, and Sam Darnold only produced 1 touchdown, and he sucked on Sunday too. So now there's a little pressure on the Jets to bounce back on Monday Night Football as a 3-point home underdog against the disappointing Cleveland Browns, who we'll get to in a couple of minutes. 22 is the Denver Broncos. People are asking me, why are they this high? They looked awful on Monday Night Football. They did, but there is chances for them to potentially steal this game from the Raiders. Deshaun Hamilton dropped the ball in the end zone, which would have been a clear touchdown. So there's a couple what-if plays that if it went the Broncos' way, they would have won that game. That's why I'm not completely sold on the Raiders, per se. But you got to give the Raiders some credit for, like I said, putting the turmoil behind them. Josh Jacobs looked pretty good for them. Meanwhile, for Denver, Joe Flacco sucked. And next week, they are home against the Chicago Bears. 21 is the Seattle Seahawks. This team might be worse than I even thought. I said that they'd be an 8-8 football team. They might be worse. They let the Bengals hang around. Yikes, the Bengals. A team that some people thought was the worst team in the league this year other than the Dolphins. Some people had them as the number 31 team in the NFL. That's a disaster for Russell Wilson and company. Their defense, even with Jadeveon Clowney, was vulnerable. Their offense really wasn't that great either. So I'm worried about the Seahawks within the next few weeks. Their next game is in a rough spot at Pittsburgh against a very angry and should be motivated Steelers team. Number 20 is the Jacksonville Jaguars. They obviously lost Nick Foles in their game. And now they have Gardner Minshew behind center, who wasn't bad, by the way, against the Chiefs. Now they have to go on and take on the Houston Texans. Another team that's going to be motivated, I think, to play. 19 is the Tennessee Titans. They took advantage of a cocky Browns team and won that game. There's always a bad team that gets everybody excited and wins in week 1 every single season. Obviously, them and the Raiders are the 2 candidates for that. And the Buffalo Bills are another team people are throwing out there as that candidate, who I'll talk about next. But the Bills are much better than those 2 teams, in my opinion, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Derrick Henry's a really good player, and he's going to have a big season. But I just don't think the Titans are a good football team. Marcus Mariota played well, but he's never healthy. I'm still skeptical about the Titans, and this week they're actually a home favorite against their division rival, Indianapolis Colts. I gave away number 18. It's the Buffalo Bills, who came from behind and beat the Jets at MetLife Stadium. They have to go back to MetLife Stadium, and now they're favored against the 0-1 Giants, who looked horrible last week. And for me, with the Bills, are they going to show up as the team that was bad in the first 2.5 quarters against the Jets, or the team that was good in the last quarter and a half against the Jets? And I think it could be somewhere in the middle. And making the case for the Giants, actually, for not being a cross-off, despite how horrible they looked, even though I pretty much talked about them already, that is because Dallas is one of the best teams in the league, and people have failed to acknowledge that. And I'll talk about the Cowboys in a little bit. So that's the case for the Giants going forward, if they were to be the bad team that surprises everybody. But the Bills, meanwhile, Josh Allen rebounds after a poor start to that game, and he really helped lead them to a victory. Devin Singletary showed flashes in that game. Their defense is awesome, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they look against the Giants on Sunday. 17 is the Indianapolis Colts. They're a team that should have beaten the Chargers outright on Sunday. They lost that game solely because of their kicker, Adam Vinatieri. If any player single-handedly cost the team a game, it's Adam Vinatieri of the Colts. He missed the field goal, and he missed an extra point. And the Colts probably win that game in regulation if that was the case. So, Adam Vinatieri is washed up. I said that as my overreaction for Monday. And the Colts need to start trying out new kickers, or else they won't be a surprise team like some people thought they would be after the Andrew Luck injury. So I'm interested to see the Colts going forward. And on Sunday, they are a 3-point dog at the Titans. 16 to Atlanta Falcons. I don't think they're as bad as they looked on Sunday. There's just a terrible spot against a team that's traditionally good at home and tends to get off to fast starts. So I really think that the Falcons are going to rebound from that. That was just a disaster of a game for them. Matt Ryan threw a couple picks and had a couple garbage time touchdowns. But I think that they'll be fine in the long run. They are actually playing the Eagles on Sunday Night Football this week as a 1-point home underdog. Number 15 is the Carolina Panthers, who played a competitive game against the Rams. Cam Newton, throughout that game, did not look all that healthy. He had some moments, but he didn't look totally right in that game. Christian McCaffrey's a monster, and I expect him to be an absolute monster tomorrow night against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the Panthers, if Cam stays healthy, might be a much better team than I think that they're going to be. Number 14 is the Pittsburgh Steelers, who laid an absolute egg on Sunday Night Football in New England against the Pats. That was the most disappointing team of Week 1, other than the next team I'm going to talk about, the Cleveland Browns. But the Steelers are a team that is better than what they showed. Bad spot for them last week against the defending world champion New England Patriots. This Sunday they host the Seahawks at home, and I'm interested to see how they look. The Browns, they gave it away. They're 13. They were by far the biggest disappointment of Week 1. Odell Beckham Jr. with the watch. That's a storyline to follow, and that's been getting a lot of media coverage. They have an opportunity to silence some doubters on Monday Night Football against the Jets next week as Odell makes his MetLife Stadium return. Granted, it's not against his former team. It's against the other team that plays in that building, the Jets. So it's going to be interesting to watch on Monday and see if the Browns rebound from that disastrous loss against the inferior Titans. Number 12 is the Chicago Bears. That was another Week 1 disappointment. Mitch Trubisky looked terrible, and now everybody is overreacting on Twitter saying that he's a bust and they should have taken Mahomes or Watson, yada yada. I think the Bears will probably end up being fine in the long run. They have a tough schedule early on. Don't forget, the Bears actually started 2-2 last year, so they were hot in the middle of the year, which made them earn the NFC North Division and getting a home playoff game in the wild card round out of it. So I don't want to overreact to the Bears quite yet, but that was just a very alarming performance. Granted, the Packers' defense has improved. I'll talk about them next. But Mitch Trubisky really has to turn it around there. You'll start to hear whispers about him being one of the bigger busts over the last couple of years. Granted, he led his team to the playoffs last year, and then you're going to start to hear the Bortles comparison for Trubisky. That's not going to be pretty in Chicago. I mentioned it earlier, 11 is the Green Bay Packers. A very nice defensive performance in their win against the Bears last week, but my concern for them is Aaron Rodgers. To me, he only had one good drive in that game, and he's really vulnerable against good defenses. And that was like my prime Packers takeaway in the negative, although in the positive, obviously, their defense is one of the more improved units in football. So I'm interested to see how they'll look next week against the Vikings at home. 10, the Houston Texans. They're a team that should have won their game against the Saints last week, but they blew it. They took the lead on that touchdown by Kenny Stills, and then the Saints come back and score the game-winning field goal after that. I still think the Texans are a good team, and I don't think this loss will cripple like some bad crushing losses have crippled other teams in the past. They host Gardner Minshew and the Jacksonville Jaguars on Sunday, and their offense is awesome, although their line still stinks despite the addition of Laramie Tunsil. So Texans are a fun team to look out for come Sunday. 9, the Ravens. This is probably my overreaction ranking. I was not high on the Ravens before the season. I thought they were a third-place team that could have potentially had a losing record. But they went out there with a bang and crushed the worst team in the league in the Dolphins. They host arguably the NFC's worst team coming up in the Cardinals. We'll know more about the Cardinals on Sunday. Depends on how the Giants look against the Bills. So the Cardinals might not be the worst team in the NFC after all. So the Ravens should win as a double-digit favorite at home against the Cards come Sunday. Lamar Jackson obviously had the game of his life, perhaps, with the 6 touchdown passes I believe he had. So, I'm interested to see how Lamar looks in week 2. 8, the Philadelphia Eagles. Slow start. They came from behind and won the game. A win's a win. Move on to next week. And what their next game brings to them is Sunday Night Football at Atlanta as a 1-point favorite. I remember there was a Sunday Night Football game where the Eagles were like a 3-point favorite at the Falcons, and they lost. And that was the year that they were overhyped and had Michael Vick and all these overrated, overhyped, overpaid players on their team, and they ultimately went like 8-8 or some random disappointing record. And so that same scenario is here again, where they're a favorite at Atlanta on Sunday Night Football against a Falcon team that isn't as bad as it looked in week 1. So be wary, Eagles. 7, the Minnesota Vikings. They looked solid in week 1. Kirk Cousins didn't have to do much. It was more ground and pound for Minnesota with Dalvin Cook, who looked excellent in week 1. Their defense obviously kicked ass. They have the best roster in that division, and I'm already regretting not picking them to win the North. Nick Costos came on my podcast a few weeks ago before the season and said that the Vikings would win that division, and I told him that they had a legit chance because of their roster. I was just a little worried about Cousins, but who knows? Maybe they can do it with Cousins being like a somewhat game manager. But the key to beating this Vikings team is to make Cousins throw and take away the run game. And obviously the Falcons did not do that And do I trust the Packers to do that? No. Although they stopped Chicago's run game, but Dalvin Cook is better than David Montgomery and Tariq Cohen. So let's see about that. 6, the Chargers survived a overtime game against the Andrew Luckless Indianapolis Colts. Win and move on. Their next game is at the Lions in a game where they should easily win. They're a much better team than Detroit. And I think that the Chargers are a team that doesn't need Melvin Gordon. I mentioned that the other day. They do not need Melvin Gordon. They could just let him walk. He could be this year's Le'Veon Bell. Austin Eckler has really proven himself to be something good. And to me, the key for the Chargers is don't make this a big drama scene like the Steelers did with Le'Veon Bell, which ultimately came back to bite them. So, there's that. 5, the Dallas Cowboys. This was the best NFC team I saw over the weekend. They played great in all phases of the game. There was a couple penalties by them, but they overcame that. Their offense was excellent. Dak Prescott was sensational. Their defense played very well. And this is a team that I think is probably going to go better than 10-6 like I thought they would be before the season. They're going to be better than that with the way they looked. They might be 13-3, 12-4 type of team that could challenge for the 1 seed along with the next 2 NFC teams I'll talk about within the next few minutes. So Dallas is a team that I think that should be talked about more as a Super Bowl contender as the year goes on. 4th, the Rams. They're one of the 2 NFC teams that are going to be there with the Cowboys fighting for the best record in the conference. They won a tough road game at the Panthers in a game where the Panthers are competitive. Now they are home against the Saints team that are coming off that emotional Monday Night Football win. And the Rams, to me, Todd Gurley looked good in flashes, and I think he's somebody that, when he's healthy, will be great. And I liked what I saw from Gurley last week. There are some people that didn't like what they saw, but I liked what I saw from Gurley. He's just somebody that doesn't have to necessarily get the boatload because they have some good backups for them. So I think the Rams will be fine, and they're obviously a team that is going to be good for the rest of the season, barring some injuries. Number 3, the Kansas City Chiefs. Speaking of injuries, this is a big one. Tyreek Hill's out 4 to 6 weeks. That is a big loss for that offense. But I think they can make up for it. Sammy Watkins is very good. Mecole Hardman has to step up. Travis Kelce is among one of the best tight ends in the league. And they have a good running game duo with Damian Williams and LaShawn McCoy. So they'll make up for it. And obviously you have the best quarterback in the world in Patrick Mahomes. So they'll be fine offensively. But I'm very concerned about their defense and that they gave up 26 points to a backup quarterback pretty much. And I think that maybe the Jaguars' talent might be a little better than we thought. That could be a compelling argument, but that's the same case for the Raiders scoring some points this week against the Chiefs. So I'm interested to see how the Chiefs look without Tyreek Hill come Sunday at Oakland against the Raiders. And then number 2 is the Saints. They're obviously the team to beat in the NFC as of right now. They were not the best NFC team in Week 1. That was obviously the Cowboys. But the Saints are still my number 2 team in the league, number 1 in the NFC. That was a great come-from-behind win against the Texans on Monday Night Football. Drew Brees is just a magician. All of his talk about his demise needs to go away. This guy is still great. He's Hall of Fame bound. And they're going to have a tough test on Sunday against the Rams, no question. But just shut up to the people that are doubting Drew Brees. Just shut up, because he's still very good. And shut up to those who also think that Tom Brady is on the decline too, because the New England Patriots are a team that is still your reigning champion. And they went out and signed Antonio Brown, and now Brown is obviously dealing with the situation, a sexual assault by his former trainer. She accused him of it, and now this is going to be an interesting storyline to see how this plays out. She's going to contact the league very soon, so it's going to be very, very interesting to see how that situation plays out for the Patriots. But no matter what happens to Antonio Brown, I think they're going to be fine. They were fine without him on Sunday against Brown's former employer in the Pittsburgh Steelers, so they should be fine as they're going up against now the worst team in the league in the Dolphins on Sunday. Okay, now I'm going to do my college bowl projections for week 3 of the college football season. Some changes were made, some new teams in the bowls, some teams I had to take away because of obviously some disappointing teams and some surprise teams early on. As we always do, start in the college football playoff. I have in the Fiesta Bowl, 2-seeded Clemson versus 3-seeded Ohio State. In the Peach Bowl, I have 1-seeded Georgia against 4-seeded Alabama. Rest of the New Year's Six Bowls, I have the Cotton Bowl, Boise State and Michigan. The Orange Bowl, Virginia and Notre Dame. The Rose Bowl, Utah and Wisconsin. And the Sugar Bowl, LSU and Oklahoma. Other bowl games, Bahamas Bowl, UAB Northern Illinois. Frisco Bowl, East Carolina and Army. New Mexico Bowl, North Texas and Utah State. Cure Bowl, Cincinnati and Louisiana. Boca Raton Bowl, SMU and Ohio. Camellia Bowl, Buffalo and Arkansas State. The Vegas Bowl, San Diego State and Oregon. New Orleans Bowl, FAU and Appalachian State. Gasparilla Bowl, Memphis and Marshall. Hawaii Bowl, BYU Nevada. Independence Bowl, Southern Miss and Boston College. Quick Lane Bowl, Wake Forest and Penn State. Military Bowl, Navy and North Carolina. Yes, North Carolina. They look like the surprise of the ACC this year with Mac Brown back at the helm. Pinstripe Bowl, Syracuse and Iowa. Texas Bowl, Iowa State, Texas A&M. Holiday Bowl, Minnesota, Stanford. Cheez-It Bowl, Washington State and Oklahoma State. Camping World Bowl, Florida State and Baylor. First Responder Bowl, Louisiana Tech and TCU. Music City Bowl, Virginia Tech and Tulane. Redbox Bowl, Maryland and USC. Belk Bowl, Miami and Mississippi State. Sun Bowl, North Carolina State and Arizona State. Liberty Bowl, Houston and West Virginia. Arizona Bowl, Wyoming and Georgia Southern. Alamo Bowl, Texas and Washington. Citrus Bowl, Michigan State and Florida. Outback Bowl, Nebraska and Kentucky. Birmingham Bowl, Pittsburgh and UCF. Gator Bowl, Northwestern and Auburn. Idaho Potato Bowl, Western Michigan and Fresno State. Armed Forces Bowl, Purdue and New Mexico. And the Mobile Alabama Bowl, Toledo against Troy. Okay, now I'm going to do my predictions for tonight's 2 WNBA playoff games. Tonight, 8 o'clock on ESPN2, you have the Phoenix Mercury and the Chicago Sky. Ryan Rucco, Rebecca Lobo on the call. And I believe Holly Rowe will be on the sidelines. Phoenix 15-19 on the year. Chicago 20-14. The Mercury are a team that has dealt with some injuries and other issues that led to them getting to the final playoff spot rather than a higher spot. The Sky are a team that really has taken a step forward this season and find themselves hosting a first-round playoff game. Diana Taurasi is dealing with a hamstring injury, and if she comes back, she can give the Mercury a big boost to go with Brittany Griner and DeWanna Bonner. The Sky cannot be slept on, though, with 3 All-Stars in Allie Quigley, Courtney Vandersloot, and Diamond DeShields leading the way. That said, the Mercury know what it's like to be in big games, and the idea of Taurasi coming back tonight is enticing. So give me the more experienced team to advance, and that is the Phoenix Mercury, who are now a 6.5-point underdog here. So maybe Taurasi's not playing, but I'm going to still take my chance with Phoenix, with Griner being the best player on the court in this game, leading them to win. I love Bonner, too. Chicago's had a great season. So, congratulations to them, obviously, on what was a fantastic season. So, I'm going to say Phoenix wins outright and covers the 6.5. The over-under is 170. That's where the Chicago jumps out to a 6.5-point favorite after opening as a pick'em, and the over-under moves up 5 points. So that's pretty weird. So I'm assuming Taurasi's out, but I'm going to pick Phoenix anyway because I just think that their experience will pay off, and I just think Chicago really has not been in a big game in a while, probably since they had Elena Delle Donne on their team. 10 o'clock ESPN2, you have the Lynx and the Storm. You have Pam Ward, Kara Lawson on the call. The Lynx 18-16 on the year, Seattle 18-16. The Lynx deserve a ton of credit for getting to this spot with Maya Moore taking the season off. The Storm have dealt with issues of their own, such as Brianna Stewart missing the year with the torn ACL and Sue Bird missing the year with a knee injury. Sylvia Foles, Odyssey Sims, and Nafisa Collier really have stepped up throughout the season, and head coach Cheryl Reeves is one of the best in the business. Natasha Howard and Jewel Lloyd have had great seasons to help the Storm get to this spot. This was a tough call, but give me the best player on the court here in Foles, and I think she leads the Lynx to a big road win to advance in the WNBA playoffs. So give me the Minnesota Lynx here on the road to win this game outright as a 2.5-point underdog. The over-under is 50.5. Money lines on this game: Phoenix plus 230 and Minnesota plus 120. Chicago's minus 280 and Seattle's minus 140. I wonder how a Phoenix-Minnesota parlay would pay out. I'm not going to include those in best bets because they're such substantial underdogs. So, Phoenix is my pick in the first game. If they win, they'll take on the Las Vegas Aces. And if the Lynx win, they'll take on the Los Angeles Sparks. So the winner of the first game takes on the Aces, who are a good team, good coach, Bill Embiid. And the winner of the Storm Lynx game takes on the Los Angeles Sparks, who are a good team with a bad head coach in Derek Fisher. So I'm interested to see how these two games play out tonight. And then the second round is on Sunday. Okay. Best bet of the day brought to you by DraftKings. So I'm going to go through the baseball slate and see what I like here to include in this. I'm going to take the Yankees to bounce back on the road against the Tigers. I don't feel super about it because it's Sabathia, and Boyd's not terrible, but I think he's overrated, though. And the Tigers are just atrocious, and they're trying to tank for the number 1 pick in the draft. So I think that the Yankees will win this game. Their offense will be better. Well, their offense was good last night. Their pitching single-handedly cost them. And I think their pitching will be better in this game as well. And they didn't have Aaron Judge last night in the lineup either, for what that's worth, although I don't know if that would have made a difference. I'm going to go with the Braves and Keuchel, the Dodgers at the Orioles. I'm going to take the Brewers would have been in there if Yelich was healthy, but Yelich was not healthy, so I think that team goes in the free fall. I'm going to take the Nationals at the Twins. I'm taking the Indians at the Angels. I'm going to take the Cardinals at the Rockies. And that's it. So $17.25, wagering $1, pay out $18.25. That's it for the podcast today. I'll be back tomorrow recapping the WNBA playoff games, baseball games, looking ahead to tomorrow's games. I'm going to pick the Thursday night game between the Panthers and the Bucks. Any other news that breaks in the world of sports, obviously, I have here for you. We'll talk more about Antonio Brown and obviously my best bet for tomorrow as well. Hope you guys have a great day, everyone.